Okay, so we're recording. Once again, it is September the 24th, 2020, and this is MELS 601 Clinical Coach Session. This is Dr. Church and Dr. Todd's class. I hope everybody's been doing well and had a good week, or actually had a good couple of weeks since the last time I've seen you. Tonight, I'm just going to go ahead and review the Blackboard Clinical Coach shell process for submitting tasks. Just make sure everybody's in good shape for that. And I am also going to introduce you to Task Stream tonight, and then we'll answer any questions you have and follow up with Task 3 and Task 4. I see that Drew's the only brave soul in the bunch willing to put his face on the screen. I hope everybody else will do the same as well. I don't like looking at those blank boxes. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. All right, so Drew, you get the gold star for this evening. Good job, man. All right, so let me, and I understand if there's some things going on, you got some things going on in your house and you can't get on screen. I certainly understand that. I always like looking at faces a whole lot more than I like looking at those boxes with the names on them. So thank you once again. And we are have some other people joining us, so we'll kind of wait till everybody gets online here. I did have some questions already submitted to the chat box. If you'll notice, you can pull those up and look at those yourself. And just kind of scanning over them. I think I'll go ahead and address those questions because I know that's probably burning a hole in some of your brains. So we'll go ahead and look at that. First question. Do the appendices start over for each task, or do they keep going through the task? Is this something we will have to change after task 5? That's a great question. As long as you can keep up with the sequence of your appendix, like in task 1, you have appendix A, B, and C. Okay, then in task 2, if an appendix pops up, the next one would be E, A, B, and C. The next one would be D, E, F, G, all the way through all the tasks. As long as you can keep that sequence in order, I don't have a problem with you just doing it that way and just keeping it at the end of your document each time. I think that's easier for you because at the end of all these tasks, this is supposed to be a complete document. We talk about task 1 through 5 individually. We discuss them basically individually. We give feedback on them individually, but at the end of the program, you will that will be one complete document. The tasks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be one long narrative that will have one title page, one reference page, one title page at the beginning, one reference page at the end, and then the appendix after that. So if it's easier for you to do that, I'm okay with it. I'm not going to go back and check and make sure you stay in sequence. I'm going to put that on you to do because at the end of the day, it's a professional document. It's a professional educational document from an accredited university and a master's program. So it needs to look like that. So if that's good for you to do that, great. If you'd rather do, task 1, appendix A, appendix B, then task 2, do the same thing. And then at the end, go back and resequence all of them. I'm fine with that. Either way is fine with me. Next question. Do the purpose, description, instructions need to be on all tasks? That is a great question. If you look at that template that you've been provided, and that's a template that's been provided by the university, and I kind of tweaked it a little bit, and I think your course instructors may have as well. It gives you instructions on, leave the purpose here, leave the description here, leave the task here, and a lot of people like to see that. A lot of clinical coaches and course instructors like to see that because it reminds them of what they're looking for, and it maybe keeps it forefront in your mind what that task is supposed to look like. I don't mean this cocky in any way. I've been doing this so long, I don't need to see it. If it's not there, that's fine with me because I hate scrolling through all that stuff to get to the meat of your narrative. However, that's fine if you leave it in there. And do you have to have it for each task? According to that template, it does say, you know, anything in black, leave in there. You take anything that's highlighted, you need to remove all the yellow highlights. Anything that tells you what to put in, like, you know, like subheading, put your subheading in here, you can remove that. Anything in red, you can remove that. Any purpose, description, prompts, you can leave those in there if you want to. I'm just, that's another one I'm going to leave up to you. It's your paper. At the end of the day, you may even share this in an interview when you're interviewing for your assistant principal or your administrator, or even a central office position. And at the end of the day, it needs to look like what you want. You know, it needs to satisfy the requirements in their university, sure, but it also needs to reflect who you are as a leader. And if you plan on using this as a kind of a portfolio when you go into an interview, then, you know, just kind of make it your own. As long as you have me, a clinical coach, if you don't ever put the purpose, the description, and the prompts in there, you know, I'll be happy. But you may get to 604. Sometimes I drop off in 603, and another clinical coach picks up groups in 604. You get to 604, you may have Dr. Talent. Dr. Talent likes to see that stuff in there. So you may say, hey, why is this removed? Well, blame it on me if you do that. But if you want to leave it in there, that's fine as well. Are the headings a suggestion, or should we always use the ones given? And make sure I don't skip a question. I think I'm right on track here. So are the headings a suggestion, or should we always use the ones given? It helps the evaluator if you use the ones that's given, because they're looking for specific things to check off. And so if they're looking for short-term objectives, then they can easily identify what section you are presenting to them that as satisfying that requirement that you've got short-term objectives in there. Same thing if you got a subheading that's a school profile, then they know that that you're presenting this narrative that's got in this section right here is what you're presenting to them for the school profile. If you remove those subheadings and put in ones that you think are more reflective of what you're saying, then it will take the evaluator a little time to hunt that out. But hey, that's okay. Once again, I go back to my default on the next question. If it's better for you and you like it better and your paper, as long as you satisfy the rubric and as long as you have those topics in there, it's okay to change the subheading. I've seen it done both ways, but I always recommend that you leave them that way, leave them in there. I think Dr. Todd does too. I'm not sure about Dr. Church, but Dr. Todd, I think she says, you know, leave the subheadings, go in the rubric, look at the sections in the rubric, make those your subheadings, because it's easier on the evaluator to go in and check those things off. At the end of the day, if the evaluator doesn't see something that they're looking for, they're going to send it back to you and say, hey, I didn't see this. And I've done that too. I've done that many times. I say, I may have missed this, but I didn't see evidence of blah, 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 blah. And then you can say, well, here it is, and say, okay, great, I just missed it. We're good to go. So once again, I prefer the subheadings to be in there as indicated in the rubric. If you want to change them, that's fine. I'll deal with it when I give you feedback. Where do the acronyms start? Task 1 or start over each task? I think I know what this question is asking, but if not, Kitty, if you will, just kind of unmute yourself and clarify that question. Once you identify an acronym, at the very beginning, the first time it appears in your narrative, you don't ever have to identify it again. If you say task 1, professional learning communities, parentheses, PLC, parentheses, then from the rest of the paper, it can be PLC. You don't have to keep saying professional learning communities again. With your school, you know, if you say North Wilkes High School and then you put NWHS, by task 3, the reader may lose track of what NWHS stands for. If it's an acronym that's not used commonly amongst all educators, then there may be a call to re-identify it as you go through your narrative. But if it's a PLC, EOC, EOG, anybody that's going to be reading this has educational background, once you identify it, and that's what you have to do. You can't use the acronym until you identify it first. Once you identify it, use the acronym, and you're good throughout. Okay, did that answer the question? Give me okay, great, thanks. For task 3 is the literature review before the annotated bibliography. Great question. The literature review is before the annotated bibliography, and then the annotated bibliography comes below that. There's actually did you guys see, and it's in my content section in Blackboard, and I guess Dr. Church and Dr. Todd have it as well, but it kind of gives hints on doing an annotated bibliography. Did y'all see that? Did y'all see that document? Okay, I see some hints on it. If you look for it, you can't find it. It just kind of gives you an idea on what that needs to look like. You can't find it, shoot me an email, and I'll make sure you can. But yeah, I always like to see the literature review first. I always like to see the literature review first. Okay. Appendices be on separate pages. I think it makes for a cleaner document. Of course, if you're printing this out, you're killing more trees, and I'm a big fan of saving all the trees we can. But I think it makes for a cleaner document if you say Appendix A, and then you show that email. Next page, Appendix B, and then you show that. I just think it's cleaner that way, and I think it's also might be easier for you to kind of organize, because you're going to be pulling those artifacts out later. We're actually going to talk about that tonight. Is now that you're starting to collect these artifacts, these agendas, these minutes, these video clips, these recordings, what are we going to do with them? Do we just use them in our paper, or do we have another place for them? And we do, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So yeah, I say separate pages are best. Since we're not having to print any of these out, then I'm okay with that. Where does the video link need to be in task 2? That can be anywhere in the paper. You can actually put it into the narrative if you wish to. And I'm assuming, and Elizabeth, if I got you wrong here, just chime in and let me know. But are you talking about the videotape or the video of the meeting? Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Yeah, if it's a meeting, you can put that anywhere in the narrative. I would put it in right where I discussed that meeting. Maybe maybe in the summary, last couple of summary sentences in that section. I would put, a video of this meeting described above can be found at this link. It doesn't necessarily have to be put in an appendix, and that's a great question as well. Those are really good questions. I appreciate you guys asking that. Anything else? And if not, I'm going to dive into what we got on the agenda tonight. Okie dokie. If that changes, you certainly chime in and let me know. I do want to tell you, I've been impressed by this cohort's submissions in your task 1. And I'm going to be completely frank with you. Now, you can say, well, you say this to every group. Well, go back and look at the recordings I've got in my clinical shell, and you can see that I don't say this to every group. This cohort has more tasks that I've just not touched. I mean, kudos to you, kudos to Dr. Church and Dr. Todd. I've never had this many tasks where I could look at it and say, gosh, man, I don't have any suggestions for improvement. This is great. Just go ahead and send on to the evaluation Dropbox. So, and this is during a time where everybody's crazy, and I mean that figuratively speaking, of course. We're in a crazy, difficult, stressful time, and you guys are putting out some quality product. You should be really proud of yourself. I've been really pleased with what I've seen from this cohort, just in the nature that I mean, you're spot on when we talk about the rubric. So, you feel good about that. Feel good about that. I really have a feeling there's going to be some strong administrators coming out of this. So remember how I treat you, and remember how I compliment you. So when you become a superintendent and you're looking for a highly paid, highly motivated individual, you'll think of me. Okay? No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. But anyway, this has been great. You guys are doing some great work. I've been impressed. Like I said, I've never had this many documents that I've just sent on through Dropbox that I haven't given feedback to. They come up every semester. There's some really high flyers, but never this many at this stage in the game. So great job on that. All right, I'm going to, okay, let's see. Okay, there was something pop up in the chat. Okay, the question was, that's a great question, Heather. Can prompt 2 be blended into prompt 1 on task 2, or do the 2 prompts have to be isolated? Great question. We talked about a little bit, and you can go back and listen to the front end of this recording later, but we did talk a little bit about the sections and the subheadings. And you know, there is value to keeping those subheadings separate and those prompts separate. But if it blends better into your paper to combine that, and as long as the material that needs to be identified for the prompts and then the rubric can be identified, then it's also okay to do that. So we've only been going at this for about 10, 15 minutes. Go back and listen to the first part of this recording, and it's where I talked about those subheadings. If that doesn't answer your question, Heather, then reach out to me tomorrow. And I sent that email out, this is a personal note, sent that email about the surgery. Thank you so much for all the well wishes and the prayers. That I really appreciate that. It's very kind of all of you. You know, it made me feel good. And so thank you to that. But I didn't know this. I had to go get COVID tested today, and because I'm having surgery, not because I'm having any symptoms. But now I'm in quarantine. You talk about scrambling to get all my stuff from the office so I could work here from home. I about went, had a meltdown when I found out that once I get COVID tested, I'm locked down until my surgery on Monday. So I'm here working from home yesterday. I'll be working from home tomorrow. So if you need to reach out to me, if we need to do a Zoom, we need to do a phone call. Like I said, I'm here at the house. I've got a bunch of work to do, but there's not like people want to be coming into my office every second asking, or every few minutes asking me for this, that, or the other thing. So I got some time tomorrow if you need to reach out, need my help on anything. I'll probably be out of commission Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'll be at home all week next week, but I feel like I hope and pray that I'll be in good shape to get back to it on Thursday and Friday. So, hopefully by Thursday, I will get back in the swing of things. But feel free to reach out to Dr. Church. Feel free to reach out to Dr. Todd. And Dr. Lamb is excellent at getting feedback. I mean, he can give you feedback. He can answer your questions because, he runs the program, and he and I had a conversation. So he's on call for me during this time. So once again, thank you. Okay, so I want to move on through this part really quick. Just make sure everybody's got a good feel for submitting work, and I think you do, because I've not had anybody make hardly, I think maybe one or two of you put something in the Dropbox when it should have been in the review. So just know, as you finish these tasks, the task for review, that's where the feedback happens, that's where the revision happens, that's where we polish it up, shine it up, make sure the air in the tires, and we drive it into grading. And when we get ready to grade, I'll say, great, you may submit this to evaluation Dropbox. I may say, go ahead and put it in the Dropbox. Or once I give you revisions in the review process, you don't have to submit it back to me unless you want me to look it over before grading. Because I've seen it once, I've kind of give you some suggestions for improvement that I think will kind of pull it all together a little bit, get it a little more in line with the rubric. Once you make those revisions, you don't have to send it back to me. If there's ever an issue with that, and I feel like I might need a little more feedback or a little more coaching, I might ask you to. But if I don't ask you to, once I give you feedback, you make the revisions as you see fit, and then go ahead and submit to the Dropbox, and I will grade them from there. So we're actually going to do this for each of the tasks, and I want to pull into the Dropbox. And you know this, this is becoming routine for you, and that's a good thing. We're wrapping up, most of you are wrapping up tasks 1 and 2. We're getting ready to move forward into tasks 3 and 4, and then we'll wrap it up in task 5. At the end of task 5, you've had all the tasks completed, and that's time to make this one complete narrative, if you haven't done so already. So you connect all the pieces, and all those separate tasks become one document, and that's the ABSL. After task 5, and I say, hey, this is great, you got 100. After you get a grade of 100, then you go back and you make that complete narrative. The narrative with one title page, all of the tasks combined into one long narrative, one reference page, one appendices section. At that, then you submit it one final time. Now, if you'll notice here, I have 2, and I've already gone over this, but I'm gonna go over it again. I have two ways to submit your final product. After you've received 500 points, that's 100 for task 1 through 5, 500 points. You got all those grades, got one complete document. If you're in Dr. Church's class, I do the turn it in for you. And you're familiar with what turn it in is. It's an originality report just to make sure, do a final check, make sure everything's good to go before we make it accessible to the evaluators and the people who are going to give you license from DPI. We want to do that final spot check to make sure we're good. And it's a good, clean document. And that's the turn it in process. If you're in Dr. Church's, you submit it here for that final evidence narrative. Then you will get a comment that says ready for task stream. Same thing with Dr. Todd. But the thing with Dr. Todd is Dr. Todd likes to look at that turn it in herself as well. So the turn it in submission is within her core shell. So if you're in Dr. Church's, you submit your final evidence narrative here, and you will get something that says ready for task stream. If you're in Dr. Todd's class, once you complete all the tasks, you submit it here, and you'll also get in the comment section ready for task stream. That means as far as the clinical coach experience and the clinical coach part of this goes, this document is ready to be evaluated in task stream. But for Dr. Todd, and you might need to check with her if she hadn't already shared this with you, is you will then take it back to her and turn it into her for the turn it in process, and then she gives you the green light to do the task stream. So when you see in the comment sections ready for task stream, that just means based on my professional opinion, this document is clean and ready to be submitted to task stream. In your Dr. Church's class, and you need to get guidance from him. Dr. Church's class, you get your turn it in score from me. Dr. Todd's class, you get your turn it in score from her. Either way, once you finish this final evidence narrative submission and get a grade and get comments, it's ready to go to task stream. Any questions? Okay, groovy. All right, I'm going to get off share real quick because I want to see your faces once again. Have you received your task stream accounts? Have you received any information on task stream? Okay, I see some of you nodding your head. I see some of you giving me the no. If you have not, reach out to Dr. Lamb or reach out to me. If you haven't got your task stream information yet, just shoot me an email. I'll work on that tomorrow or Saturday. Make sure that you have that. So you are familiar that there's a platform out there called TaskStream, and you know how to access it, or you got information on your username, your password, so on and so forth. If you haven't, like I said, just reach out to me. That should be coming up pretty soon. But I want to see, for those of you and anybody watching the recording, if you haven't, send me an email. Just kind of want to get a guess of who hasn't, so we can make sure we stay on top of that and you get that. So now we're going to talk about TaskStream. Now remember, you got two big sandboxes that you play in. One sandbox is the Blackboard course shell, clinical internship shell. That's all through Gardner Web. That's all, you get it through Web Connect. You access it through that. That's that sandbox. Another sandbox that you're going to play in is TaskStream. TaskStream is a separate URL, a separate platform, and you do things in there. And I like to give it kind of explain it this way. There's two things to be ready to be an assistant principal or principal in North Carolina. You have to have a degree and master's in educational leadership from an accredited university, and you have to have licensure and be approved from DPI. So you have to graduate from a graduate program for school administrators from a university, but you also have to get licensure. You can have your degree, not get the licensure, and you not be, and if you're in South Carolina, there's a reciprocal agreement between South Carolina Department of Public Instruction, North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. So when I say North Carolina or DPI, I'm talking about both. You can have a degree and have the diploma, but still not be a principal if you don't get licensure. So there's two things to satisfy that, and that's these two. If you allow me to continue to use the term sandboxes, that's what these do. Anything that you do through Blackboard, as far as the course shell and the clinical shell goes, that's all to get you to the diploma. That's all to get you to satisfy the requirements of Gardner-Webb, so you can go across the stage, walk away with that diploma, and you have a master's in educational leadership. What we do in TaskStream, this other sandbox, that's for licensure. That's what, and Gardner-Webb still controls both, still supervises both, still keeps tabs on both. But what the information in TaskStream is what's evaluated to get you licensure from your respective state. All right, so that's kind of keep those two compartments. You know, you got your course shell through Blackboard, and you got your TaskStream. So we pretty much, pretty much everything there is to know about your Blackboard and your course shell and your clinical shell right now. So now we're going to move into TaskStream. All right, so remember a while ago when I said once you have your final evidence narrative, you do the Turnitin process, whether it's through me for Dr. Church's class or whether it's with Dr. Todd for Dr. Todd's class. Somebody will tell you, either me or Dr. Todd, that it is ready for TaskStream. So once you see that, you take that ABSL and that you take all the information, that ABSL, that one complete document, and you upload it into TaskStream. So now let me pull up TaskStream. I'm going to go over TaskStream again in our next session. This is just kind of the introductory version of it. Okay. All right, so everybody see the watermark company page? You should, and I'm going to log in. TaskStream is at the bottom. Everybody's seeing this. If you're not seeing watermark, sign in, and TaskStream in the lower left, let me know because my screen share is not working. Okay, TaskStream, sign in. Now my TaskStream is going to look different than your TaskStream. The reason is obviously because I do administrative work in it, and you do candidate work in it. But I'm going to pull up some screens that look familiar and should look familiar to you. All right, so just like in the Blackboard shell, you've got two things you work with. You work with the course shell and the clinical shell. In TaskStream, you also have two compartments that you work in. You have your direct response folio, or the DRF. That's kind of right here. And like I said, what you're looking at now, it won't look like this when you pull yours up. This is just my version right now. But just wanted to identify this acronym for you. One of the compartments that you work in with TaskStream is the direct response folio. I'm going to talk about the other compartment here in just a minute, but let's just focus on the direct response folio. You want to hear that referred to several times, and probably from me. I'll try to say it, spell it out, as we continue this introduction over the next week or so. But eventually, I'm going to say the DRF. So when I'm talking about the DRF, I'm talking about this. And this is what it looks like for you. I'm just going to pull, oh, here we go. I got a good example. MES Fall 2020. This is what you see when you pull up your DRF. This is the direct response folio. And when you pull it up in your TaskStream account, this is what you're looking at. So we're looking at the same thing now. Once you finish everything in Blackboard, you turn it in, all the tasks are written, the ABSL's a complete document, you do the turn it in, Dr. Todd tells you, I tell you, Dr. Church says, hey, this is ready for TaskStream, go for it. Then you take that file on your computer and you upload it into your direct response folio or your DRF. And you upload it right here where it says ABSL. Now there's some other things here, we'll talk about it in just a minute, but you click on ABSL, and there's directions on how to do this. There's things you can upload here. Basically, you just you upload it from here. Here's the rubric. I believe. Let me click on this. I'm hesitant to click on anything because I don't want to submit anything because I don't want somebody to try and grade it. All right, so let me pull this up. I can't remember what this is. Okay, yeah, what that document is there is just kind of pulls from the scale handbook of what the APSL is supposed to look like. But this is where you put it. This is where you upload the APSL. You don't need to request comments. You just need to submit, and there'll be a submit button here for you when you upload something. Then you'll have opportunity to submit it. All right. If you'll notice, you're going to be working in this DRF the whole program. Here's MELS 602. Here's MELS 603. Here's MELS 604, 605. We'll talk about this later on. Don't worry about the final competency folio, the completer survey, the internship log. We'll come back to that. So I just want you to know that this is the DRF that you'll be working in each semester once you finish that evidence. And by evidence, I mean the APSL. Next semester, it'll be the APTL. Next semester, it'll be the OMA. When I say evidence, when you finish that evidence in Blackboard and somebody tells you it's ready for task stream, this is where you put it. Any questions? I'm going to go on here in just a minute. I just want to pause to see if there's any questions. I know I'm not that great a instructor or coach. You guys just must be highly intelligent because you're really catching on here. Good job. All right, so you're going to see a couple of other things here under the heading of 601. It's called a competency analysis and a School of Ed disposition. These are two things that you need to complete as well. However, you do not need to worry about them until towards the end of the semester. Basically, what these are is a self-assessment. The competency analysis is you take a look at yourself in each of the 21 competencies and you see where you're at in meeting those competencies. It's just a self-assessment. The School of Ed dispositions, it's got different topics. It's dispositions towards leadership. You look at yourself there as well, and you give a self-assessment. And if you'll notice, you don't have to do them again until 603. You have to do School of Ed dispositions again. You self-assess yourself one more time to show growth in dispositions of leadership. And then next at 605, you have to do them both back to back. This is our way of showing your growth, one of our ways of showing your growth as a leader, but by you self-assessing yourself. We will go into more detail on these later on, probably the next class session. Pull them up, take a look at them, see what it looks like. If you want to explore them until that's fine. Just know when you self-assess yourself, you're not necessarily going to hit, you're not going to meet every mark. You're not going to hit the high scale of each one because you haven't gone through the process yet. It's okay to not meet or be at a scale 1 to 4, be 1, because you're just starting out in the program. This isn't a diagnostic assessment. It's not an evaluative assessment. It's a formative assessment, just to show how you progress in your competencies of leadership and your dispositions towards leadership. So, like I said, we'll come back. We'll talk about these later on. I want to get back on 601. And that this is why I tell you that 601 is actually the hardest semester because you've got more to do in 601 than you do any other semester. You don't have to do any of this stuff in 602. You just have the app. So this is the busiest semester. But once you get this down, you get this routine down, the rest of them, it's, as the old saying goes, it's kind of downhill from here. All right. So we talked about putting your task into the Blackboard shell, getting feedback from me, submitting it for a grade. Once you get all the tasks completed, you take that complete narrative APSL, you submit it for the final evidence narrative, get your Turnitin score, get your permission to upload to task stream, take that APSL, upload it here, and you're done with the APSL as far as the narrative goes at that point. This is where the evaluator will go in and evaluate it for your progress in the program, for your degree, and this is also where we'll submit it to the Department of Public Instruction as evidence that you're ready to be licensed as an administrator. Any questions? Remember, this is called the DRF. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about the other compartment that you work in here as well, because sometime as you finish up the ABSL, you want to start wanting to work on your electronic portfolio. It's not anything. Good thing about this, the things that you're putting into TaskStream, it's not really going to be anything that you have to create or complete. It's just pulling out things that you've already done and putting them in the proper order and the proper sequence, and connecting the dots. So that's the good thing about this, is really you're just taking things that you've done through the course and through your clinical experience and uploading them into TaskStream. So you're not doing any new assignments, you're not doing any new projects. You're just pulling the information out and putting it in the appropriate place and connecting the dots. That's the great thing about working in the task. The DRF is what we talked about here. Next, I'm going to talk about your competency folio. I will go over all this again next time we meet. But how you access your competency folio is you go up to the banner and you'll see this link up here that says folios and web pages. Now, what this is, and I talked to this about you before, this is where you're going to utilize those artifacts that you're collecting. When in just a minute, I'll show you where. But remember I talked to you about, how if I'm an artist, I can tell you about being an artist, but I have to prove to you I'm an artist by showing you things that I've painted or products that I've made. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but a lot of movies, they'll talk about artists going for interviews or models going for interviews, and they carry in this big portfolio, this big notebook that's got all the artwork they've done or all the modeling assignments and pictures that they've been in, and they show the guy, this is what I've done in the past. This is my portfolio. This is an electronic portfolio, and it's an electronic portfolio that proves that you're competent in those 21 competencies of leadership. So that's why it's called the competency folio. So in TaskStream, you have your DRF, which is where you upload the ABSL, and you're also going to have your competency folio, and that's where you pull out and reuse these artifacts that you're collecting now. So I'm going to click on this. Now, when you click on that, there won't be anything there. It'll be blank because you actually have to create this competency folio. You have to build one. It's not hard. There's a 2-minute video that shows you how to do this. I'll show you where that's at in just a minute. But you go up here to create new, and you can change the font, you can change the color. I think I've even got an exemplar. Yeah, I do. I've got an exemplar that I'll show you next time. What you can do to change it to make it look very professional, because this is something that's going to be yours. Once you create it, it's yours for the duration. You can take it with you to an interview. You can send the link ahead and share it with the person that's doing the interview and let them look through this. Great tool for when you start interviewing. Excellent tool. So you want it to look professional. You want it to look nice. You want to, it's kind of like a little web page. A little website, like a little website, and you can make it look as professional and colorful and as detailed as you want it to. There's a lot of options there. But when you create it, it's going to look something like this. This is one that I created just for examples. If you'll notice here on the left sidebar are all the 21 competencies that you are working with, that we've talked to you about. And task 5 of ABSL, you're going to reflect on, I think it's 12 or 13 of these. Is all of those. There's also a section that says digital learning competencies. Don't worry about that. You don't have to do anything with it. That's just there because of accreditation for the university and internship logs. This is where I give you feedback on your internship log. You can submit it there towards the end of the semester, and I'll give you feedback on your internship log on your 80 hours. But these are the 21 competencies, and all you're doing is you're going through your ABSL and you're saying, okay, of the artifact, this is just artifacts. You just pour artifacts in here. You label them, you identify them as where they're from, what they're for, and then you just upload them in here, and that's all you have to do here. No long narrative. If you want to write a couple of sentences explaining what the artifact is, that's fine. You can do, you can click on communication, give you a place to put a text box or image or upload an attachment or a video. You can put it all in here. It gives you some directions. But you pull all those artifacts out that you, and you only have to use one. Whatever artifact best represents your competency in communication. If it's an email to the principal, then it's an email to the principal. If it's a screenshot of emails to your PLC group, that's great. But you upload them here, and that's showing. Remember, I told you it's not just enough to tell us what you did, but show us what you did. This is your portfolio of products that you've created by working in the evidences. This is where you store them for licensure. Now, if you'll notice, each competency, we've got change management, conflict management, creative thinking, customer focus. Let's go back to your creative thinking. All right, let's say with creative thinking, if I can click it, creative thinking, I've got something in the ABSL that will work for creative thinking. And it gives you a cheat sheet, really, or a guide, if probably a better phrase to use, a guide on where you need to look for artifacts. Beside of creative thinking, you see in the evidences, there should be one from the ABSL, one from the APTL, and then one from something you may have done in your coursework, or definitely something you may have done when you collected internship hours. So it's just called open-ended. That's just the wild card. Put in whatever you want to there. So in this section for creative thinking below, I should have something for the ABSL, I should have something for the APTL, and something for something open-ended one in what I've done. And this doesn't have to be completed. For this semester, you're just going to put maybe one for the ABSL. If you have a good open-ended that shows creative thinking that you want to use, you can go ahead and upload it. You can satisfy the open-ended anytime during the program. It doesn't have to be done each semester. So if you look at customer focus, one from the OMA and one from the SIX. The OMA is 603, the SIP is 604. So you're not going to be putting anything in unless you have an open-ended, you're not going to put anything in customer focus this semester, unless it's something that open-ended that you think is really good for customer focus. And it might be, if you talk about remote instruction and you're doing remote instruction, you're designing that for the benefit of the students and the parent, being customer focused. Yeah, you could put an artifact up there. You don't have to write any narrative. You just have to upload the artifact. You do need to identify the artifact as which one is this a representative from. When you start plugging things in here, say this is for the ABSL. Identify it as an artifact from the ABSL, because as you start dumping artifacts into here, it can get disorganized real quick, and whoever's reviewing this won't know what artifact is for what, from what evidence for what competencies. So just keep that in mind. But this is your competency folio. That's all I'm going to talk about it tonight. You can go in and look. I am going to show you the little video on how to create one, and we'll show you the exemplar. We will revisit this again. You don't need to be putting anything in here right now. This is just to get introduced to it and just make you aware that it's there, and this is something that you'll begin to work on as you finish up the evidence, the ABSL evidence. Getting that ABSL written, tasks 1 through 5, getting that final evidence done and submitted and turning it into task stream for evaluation. That's priority 1. That's what you need to focus on now. Are those. There may be some questions on this. If you got some, I'll be happy to go over it. But like I said, we will visit this again. And next time we visit, which I think is maybe week after next, be a little bit closer. You'll be wrapping up the ABSL and you'll be able to focus in on this more. All right, so let me go back. I'm leaving task stream, and I'm going back to the Blackboard, and I'm going back to my clinical internship shell. You should be looking at my clinical internship shell now. If not, please let me know. I'm going to go down here first to the video library, And here is a 2-minute video on setting that competency folio up. Dr. Lamb does it. Okay, before I let it go on, what you should be looking at now is YouTube. Here, we got YouTube on the screen. Okay, great.
Is there supposed to be sound?
Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know, Kitty. And I was just going to get off of it anyway. You can pull this up and watch it on your own. But he goes with you on how to set up a competency folio. It's only, I said 2 minutes. It looks like it's about 4 minutes. Sorry about that. Just you can feel free to look at that when you're ready to work on that. But that gives you everything you need to know on creating a competency folio. So I'm gonna go back to the Blackboard, and in my templates and resources, there should be, yeah, at the very bottom, it's called a competency folio exemplar. This is an example of what one candidate did several semesters ago, and we just use an example. Doesn't mean that yours has to look like this. It's just to show you what it could look like. Okay, so that it goes straight to it. You can look at all the competencies here, how she's identified, and she actually did more than what was required. There's only 3 required for each competency. She actually did more, and that's fine. We will revisit this again, but just to let you know, this is how it can kind of be modified and personalized and customized for what you want to do with yours. And where can you find that? You go to my clinical shell, click on templates and resources, and it's at the very bottom. All right, so just a few more minutes. I'm going to go pull up. Can you see the scale handbook right here? It says ABSOL Task 3 best practices. Okay, we'll talk about Task 3 real quick. Task 1, you created a PLC, you did PLC research, got permission to create a PLC. Task 2, you did a comprehensive needs assessment, and looking at all that data, you identified a need or some needs in your school. Well, once you identify a need, what are you going to do about it? If you're looking for a solution or an application that will address that gap, that will help to decrease that gap, as you know by now as educators, it needs to be evidence-based or best practices. I like the term evidence-based practices. There's evidence out there that says this application addresses this need. There's research that's been done that says this is a good solution application for this particular need. So whatever need that you identified, low graduation rate, now you and your team are going to go do some research and look for, in the research, some evidence-based applications that have been proven to reduce or to increase the graduation rate. If that's the example that I'm using. So you're doing some more research, but it's not about PLCs. It's about whatever. First, you got to identify the need. Once you identify the need, you got to do that research out there and look for what has been proven to be a good application for that need. So you create a literature review and an annotated bibliography based on what you and your team has researched, and you write that up. There's remember in the templates and resources, there's some documents there on helpful hints. Your template talks about this, but there's also helpful hints in creating the annotated bibliography. That is showing the research that you led your team and you facilitated your team in research to look for the best evidence-based practice out there that can address the gap that you identified in your comprehensive needs assessment. So you write all that up. Once you do that, then through using graphic organizers, visuals, charts, tables, graphs, timelines, you kind of show in a narrative of how that can be applicable, how you're planning on applying it to, you know, pull in. And a lot of these evidence-based practices of the research, they're going to have graphs. This is what they found out. This is where this graph shows that the increase in student achievement due to the application of whatever. You can use those and pull them out and apply those into your own school. And you just talk about, okay, we went out and found out all the different things out there that's supposed to be a good evidence-based practice you use to meet this need. We're going to pick one or two of these, whatever you decide to pick, and you're going to implement it, but you're also going to kind of show in detail how you expect that to play out, how you expect that to help in terms of graphic organizers, visuals, charts, tables, timelines, and the stuff like that to demonstrate how the PLC projects, how you're going to project this best practice strategy. That's task 3. Task 3 is going out there and looking for the solution to the problem you identified in task 2. Task 3 is there's several solutions out there that may solve the problem that you identify in task 2. You and your team are going to pick the best solution or the best solutions, and then you're going to project how those solutions are going to be implemented at your school. Not really in detail, but just pulling out that, like I said, that the visuals of all of that. In task 4, you create an action plan. And by an action plan, you're going to write the narrative, and in that narrative, the prompt talks about short-term objectives, long-term objectives. What we got here? Yeah, the importance that you do some research on the action plan, show that you have knowledge of what an action plan is. Do some research on the action plan. Talk about it lining up with the student learning outcomes. What are your short-term, mid-term, long-term objectives, specific strategies and objectives, your indicators of how you're going to evaluate it for success, who's going to be doing what, and during the process, what are you going to use as a formative assessment to kind of guide your actions, and then at the very end, the summative assessment that's going to evaluate this implementation. Was it successful, or do we need to go back to the drawing board? And then you're going to create that action plan, and you Google action plan, but you know what action plan is. Basically, it's got your goals, objectives, or strategies, who's responsible for when you're going to implement it, the timeline, and how you're going to evaluate it. Got those 4 columns in a table. Just Google that, but you need to put that into your narrative. You need to show that action plan. Second part of that is you're going to show this action plan to your administration. Your administration team, you're going to do this presentation, so there should be evidence of the presentation, and you're going to talk about these following topics in your presentation as you present the action plan. So task 1 is creating the PLC, task 2 is finding the need, task 3 is finding the solution to the need, task 4 is implementing the solution and presenting that recommendation or proposal to administration for approval. And I think that's the difference between that's another evidence. I'm sorry. In one evidence, you present to the administration, that's a level 4. If the administration actually implements your recommendation, that's a level 5. But that's not for the APSL, that's another evidence. Sorry, I got confused there for a second. All right, we will revisit this again, but as you have any questions, well, I'll answer them now. I'll stay with you as long as you want me to. If not, you shoot me emails or ask for another Zoom meeting with you or just your group. Be happy to do that. And any questions on 3 or 4? All right, and this is it. Everything that you looked at tonight, that's it. There's no more doors to open. There's no more surprises, no more boxes. This is it. So now we're just going to go back and review and refine and make sure you know what to do in each of these. But there's no more, we got task 5 to talk about. Task 5 is simple, but this is everything you need to know to be successful in the Gardner Webb program by now. You know about the Blackboard shell, your core shell and your clinical shell. You know about task stream. You know about your DRF. You know about your competency folio. We'll definitely review it and go over it again. I'll probably start out by going over task stream the next session. Just kind of go over task stream, review all that again, talk more about that competency folio and how that comes into play. We'll talk a little bit about task 5, but there's nothing else left for me to share of any new information that you're going to have to adjust to. This is all there is to it. Now we just need to kind of get in there and get familiar with it. But once again, all you need to focus, forget about task stream or put it back on the shelf. You don't need to open that up again. You just need to focus on getting your task 1, 2, 3, and 4 done. That's what you need to focus on now. But remember to collect those artifacts because you're going to be using those again later on. Any questions? All righty, I will post this video. If not, tomorrow I'll send it to you in your email. Remember, you can find it in the video library in my clinical shell as well. You guys, I know it's been a lot of information, but it's time now that you were aware of everything that you're going to be working with. This is the time to do that, so I want to be sure and get that out tonight. But like I said, we're going to review everything. I'm always here for you. Email me. If you need to talk, email me and say I just need to talk to you. No problem. We'll get on the phone and we'll have a conversation or whatever we need to do. Reach out to me anytime except for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. But you make sure you talk to Dr. Todd, Dr. Church, or definitely Dr. Lamb. He can help you better than I can. He's been in this a long, long time. I've been in this 14 years. I think he's been in this 20, 25 years, former superintendent. Really knowledgeable fellow, really good, really quick to get back to you, and a good resource for you. All right, thanks for hanging in there. Appreciate you sticking with me. I don't see anything in the chat box. I think I've addressed everything, and we'll upload this video, like I said, either tonight or tomorrow. I'll be working from home tomorrow, so you can reach out to me if you need to. Thank you guys so much. I hope and pray you and your family stay safe and healthy until we see each other again. Thank you so much. There's one chat thing. Let me look. If you're done, feel free to leave and chill out. I'm gonna make sure that I address everything in the chat if I can get it to pull up for me. For some reason, it's getting difficult. Yes, I can. There was a question that I'd stick around and answer some questions. I'll be happy to. I'm actually going to stop the recording now. So